Well, hi there. Why don't we start in for real then? Delighted to have so many of you here with us today. Let's do like some really quick introductions, and then we can talk a little bit more about how we can structure our teams so that we can grow them sustainably. Because obviously, none of us want to burn out. And so we're going to do some really quick introductions. We just do a quick intro with your name, your city, and then talk a little bit about, your team structure and try and keep that to 30 seconds max. So here, I'll model it out and then we'll go around the horn. So hi, I'm Eli. I'm here in Vancouver, and I've been organizing NetSquared Vancouver for almost 10 years now. My team structure went from just me to a couple people who came and went to a pretty stable team of 5 people now, each of whom takes on an event producer role, which means they're basically planning 2 events a year, and we sort of pass the baton every month. So that's kind of what it looks like here in Vancouver, but it took us a long time to get to that point. Why don't we go next on my little screen? I've got Mohammed here, who's a newer organizer.
Hi, my name is Mohammed Bashir. I am west of Toronto, which is Mississauga. I started in September last year. I think that was my first event. I'm still solo. I'm trying to find the team and like the long-term partners who want the promotion or who can help me with the promotion as well of the show as well. So still I'm on my early stages, so that's where I'm right now. I have 3 panelists for this event, so yeah.
Great. So, so I think, yeah, you're in the new phase where you're still looking to sort of build the team out.
Yeah.
Next I've got up on my screen is John Brown.
Hello, I'm John Brown. I'm in Buffalo, New York, and we just started our NetSquared with our organization last year. And we have a team of 2 people to help with the events. So we started out small. I think we had 5 people at our first gathering. So we're trying to get our next ones going soon this next month.
Great. Yeah, and I just saw you reached out to your members, which is one of the tips I'm going to be giving for one of the ways you can start recruiting more people to come into the team. So next we've got Pascal. I know French is your native language, but if you want to do a quick introduction, that would be very nice. Or, okay, we're getting some audio issues, so that's not going to happen. Pascal, if you maybe want to, do another quick intro, just telling people about the groups you're coordinating in the chat window, that would be really nice. Moving next along, I've got Bruce, who is still on mute, by the way. Okay, perfect.
Hi, my name is Bruce. I'm a co-organizer who's lost his co, and I've been doing this for, is this 5 years now? 4 years? 5 years? And I'm in Peterborough, so north and east of Toronto, in Canada. And yes, I'm looking to build up. I'm looking to build up my my group again and get it going where it's not all reliant on me coming up with plans, planning it, finding the location, and resourcing it.
Great. Yeah, and I think we're definitely going to be talking about both the kinds of roles and then how you can bring people in and then manage them from there. Next, we've got Onimas.
Yes, I'm Onesimus Diongo from Nairobi, Kenya. I was introduced to the network last year, I think November. I've not been able to team up with other members in Nairobi. I'm still running on how to start hosting the event this year. I'm looking forward to learn from you and to see how you are are doing your event. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. So yeah, you're in the very beginning phase, although there are some other active events happening in Nairobi. So next I've got Linda.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure. I haven't used Zoom before, so just wanted to make sure everything was working okay. So yeah, hi, I'm Linda. I'm an organizer from Chicago, Illinois, and I've been doing this for a little over 1 year. So, and I don't know, what else would you like to know about me?
Tell me about, do you have co-organizers right now or event producers, like, or is it all a single woman show?
Well, that's a tough one to answer. For the most part, it really is just me. I do kind of have some co-organizers that have been, helpful with some things in the past. So some of this year, I guess, will be trying to regroup and, really talk through, what we're doing. The other thing that I wanted to let you know was I just was contacted by another group similar to us, Net Impact. So I guess they have a pretty active chapter in Chicago and they're interested in teaming up. So there are definitely ways, that we can coordinate with other groups as well. And I've been working with another organizer through Meetup that's located in the Chicago area. She's hosting things strictly for nonprofits. So, we'll just have to see what comes of that this year. And so that's all in the early stages.
Fabulous. Well, welcome. And I think that's actually a really helpful tip, which is to partner or sometimes even merge with other similar groups. We certainly saw that happen in San Francisco, which sort of brought together a Tech for Good group and a NetSquared group into one larger community. So I've got Augustine with us as well today. Who's currently on mute. We may have lost him, but he can come in later. Is there anyone else who's slipped in who I've missed? Well, great. Well, then, I think that's good for now. We'll probably have one or two other people slip in through the course of this call. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. I think it's going to be a pretty informal conversation. I think, but what I'm hearing from you is some pretty consistent questions, like, where do I find co-organizers? And then from the other side of that, which is like, how do you keep them? And sometimes that actually, the keeping them comes from the, how do we give them clear roles where they can succeed as opposed to where they kind of disappear because they're not quite sure how they can best contribute. So let me just talk a little bit about what we have for resources. So I'm going to turn on screen sharing, and I'm going to show you what we've got on the wiki right now. And so we've got a Zendesk site, the NetSquared Organizers Manual. And the key piece here is if you go into the actual manual section, there is a dedicated section right here all about co-organizers. So if you click in here, it's got some templates and some tips just around how you can manage your group. And then we'll go through this, and then I want to walk you through what I actually do here in Vancouver and what the structures evolved to be over the last 6 or 7 years. So you'll see here within the document, basically we've got a couple of core pages, some tips on building your team, and then just some sections around what those assistant roles can look like for you. And then we actually have like a template for a volunteer recruitment email that you can actually send out, cut and paste, but add your own particular take to it. So say we go into that first page around building your team, and it talks a little bit about, some of the the strong roles you can have. So first of all, I think groups that are successful have what we often call a brain trust of informal advisors. And so these people are not necessarily your co-organizers. These are people rather who are like super connected in like the local technology or nonprofit community who can introduce you to speakers and offer suggestions on how you can grow your community and also to sort of promote your events throughout their own communities and membership. But of course, I've found that those are the people you also turn to for, coming in to be guest presenters and other things. The other thing all of us need as teams is on the day of the actual event, we need event assistance. There's lots of small tasks, everything from the welcome table to who's going to live tweet the event if you're doing that. And I'll have some job descriptions that can help you sort of think through what those roles can be and how you can manage them. And then I want to talk about the role that I think has been most fruitful for us over the years for the larger groups. And that's the idea of the event producer. Because I'll be very honest, the words co-organizer are terrifying to lots of people. They run screaming when you come to them and say like, hey, could you be a co-organizer? So we've invented this smaller role, which is to say like, oh, don't worry, you're not a full co-organizer. I just want you to plan one event. And it's, for many ways, it's a really helpful format because it gives you a way to test who is dependable. Because I think as many of us have discovered as we brought co-organizers in, sometimes they disappear on us. Often they disappear on us. And so before you bring someone in and start relying on them, it's great to give them a small test to see if they got the stuff to stick around and actually successfully host a meetup. Because this is a unique specialized skill. Lots of people just are not really cut out for this. And then we've got the lead organizers, which are you. And those are usually the people who just act as project manager, make sure the venue's up to date, make sure the meetup is getting updated. And I think those are the roles you typically take. And so, usually a group has got one or two of those people with a larger team. And so as you'll see when we scroll down through the page, we've got some sample messages here for people who are, trying to do some recruitment. And when you're saying like, okay, well, what am I actually recruiting for? Well, then that's why I've actually got some descriptions of what all the potential roles you might need in your group are. So you'll see we've got everyone from the pre-event roles, like who wants to run social media for some people. And then you've got the during the event roles, and those could be someone who's going to do video, someone who's going to welcome people to the room, someone who might be the person who volunteers to make cookies. So you have snacks at the event. And so those are sort of the core roles. And the way it works here in Vancouver is we basically set up just a very standard workflow to manage the team. So the first thing we've done is I created a Google group about 6 years ago. And so what I do is at the beginning and end of every event, I basically say, who wants to get involved? Are you interested in any way? Here's some things I'm looking for. Like, I'd love someone to come and help at the registration desk. And I take those people's email addresses and I haven't done any vetting, but I just add them directly to the Google group. And then they're just in the email list. And I kind of ignore them there. But once a month, usually about 10 days before my event, I go and I email that Google group and I send them a form. And so what we've been using is I use doodle.com, which is a free sort of time selection tool. But you can also use it to create things that aren't necessarily set to a time, but just to assign roles. So we use it like a very simple free volunteer sign-up form. And so all I've done is I basically created a little chart saying along the top here, he's like, oh, I need someone to pick up the snacks from Costco. I need a photographer. I need someone to do live streaming of the video. I need someone to welcome people at the door. So I define out like the 5 roles you probably need at your event. And then I send this link with 2 sentences description to that meetup group. And that allows people to opt in to volunteer. And you're quickly going to identify of like, oh, the 10 people in your Google group, only 2 of them are consistently reliable, which is great. But, keep the other people on that list. Maybe they're going to eventually get more engaged. And if they don't, well, that's fine as well. But this is a really great and easy way for you to just sort of assign people to roles through self-selection before each event. And of course, you can just duplicate the form and basically cut and paste last month's email. And so it's a really nice way for you to manage the workflow for signing up your volunteers. And it's from this group of volunteers that I find most of my co-organizers, because this is, again, one of the tests. There's always like the little tests along the way. And so, so within this group, you'll say like, oh, Tanya's really reliable. It's like signed up for the last 3 months. Then I'm going to go and email Tanya and say like, hey, have you ever thought about, hosting an event? And so then you go and say like, you basically have a call and you coach people through the process of like, where would you find a good speaker? What do you need to get from them? And you say to that person, I want you to be an event producer. So you don't need to be a full co-organizer. All you need to do is manage the talent for the event, do the introduction, maybe host the panel event on any topic that you're passionate about, and say to them, I'll do all the legwork. I'll manage the meetup.com and make sure the event posting is up there. I'll make sure the venue is booked. I'll make sure like the supporting volunteer team is recruited because I'm going to send out the email with a form. I just want you to be that event expert. And over some time, you start recruiting a strong team of people who can basically take on a lot of the event planning for you. So you can go from, oh, I can only do 5 events a year because I don't have enough time, to, oh, I can do 10 events a year because actually I'm only hosting 2 of them. So that's how we've managed things here in Vancouver. And I think, the question we've often heard from people is, well, where do I find those co-organizers? And I think, that's a really great question. So I'd love to hear from some of you about where you have found your co-organizers. And then I'll talk about some of the things I've heard from across the network. So anyone want to share, like, where do they find a co-organizer for their group? I know, like, Bruce, so you had a co-organizer for a while. Where did you find your co-organizer?
Sorry. It was a community member that also did some of the same tech support stuff and planning stuff, and she and I met at the a TechSoup conference and put the group together originally, and we recruited some other people through. We recruited some people to help coordinate and design some of the things through some government funding. So we actually found some paid HR to actually have people come in and do presentations for a while. That's how we got things rolling. Without somebody to actually write those proposals and coordinate that kind of stuff, it was harder, and losing one half of the sort of coordination piece was a difficult one, as Eli knows. So that's been sort of albatross the last little while. Is I'd really like this group to work, and I know that there's demand for it, but we've got people, and the word's gone out a couple of times that we need more effort to coordinate it and refresh the group, and it's hard. But the basic of how we did there was we created that we created the group together with two coordinators, unpaid, volunteer, and then over time I had access through my work to apply for some government funding 6 months at a time, and paid somebody about 10 hours a week or something to put things together, do some presentations, schedule the meetings, take reservations, set up this location, and that kind of thing, which really sort of helped put it, get the ball rolling.
Yeah, and I think I think finding funding sources is an interesting approach, but I do think it also sometimes reveals the danger of that approach. And part of the power of NetSquared has always been because there usually is no money around. Somehow we have some music in the background. So when money gets involved, it also means like when the money goes away, when the funding goes away, suddenly you need to backfill that. So the way we can build our groups in the most sustainable model is to say like, sponsorship is great, but could it still operate without sponsorship? I think can sometimes be an important consideration. When I look at where I found my co-organizers, I think I found two things, which is one, whenever I went to someone and said, do you want to be a co-organizer? I failed. They disappeared after 2 months. So I really am now very suspicious of the formal co-organizer recruitment process where you say like, I want you to come in and take on this bigger role, because I just was unable to really determine who was reliable and who wasn't reliable. And so for me, the way I have most found my co-organizers is, first of all, I've I put an ask out to all of the presenters. So anyone who had already volunteered enough to come in and be a presenter and do an event already proved that they were reliable enough to that first level. And so, then you get to bring those people in and say, would you be interested in producing your own event? Like, what are you really passionate about? And so that's one way to come at that. And then the other way the co-organizers have come is they've come from the smaller event roles, basically someone who's going to work at the registration desk. And those are the people who usually come to me because I make an ask at the beginning and end of every single event, very reliably, just saying like, do you want to get involved? Are you new to the city and want to build your network? Do you want to share your skills with nonprofits? Come join us. We'd love to have your assistance. And I give them a couple examples of like, oh, I need you to take a photo at the next event. I need someone to handle the live stream camera because I'm bad at that stuff. And once they come in and are reliable, once again, once they pass the test, then you say like, and I want you to produce an event. And then you're like, oh, you produced 2 events? How about you be a full organizer? And really think of it as working people through like a sales funnel or an engagement pyramid. So that's worked for me there. Anyone else have some experience around finding co-organizers with their groups?
Well, for me, the way I was given the names of people that are my co-organizers are from somebody who was the organizer for NetSquared Chicago but isn't anymore.
Yeah.
And so, I had multiple meetings with them, and so the nice thing about it is that they do come out to the meetings, so they do show up, but some of my issues have been represented that they would be willing to find speakers. They told me that they had connections to different kind of spaces for events, and so they said that they would take on a 3-block event.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I tried to get details from them about the events that they were planning, they would always tell me that they were having trouble getting speakers and they were having trouble finding a venue. And so I would say to them, if that's what's going on, we can just shift your, events later into the year. I don't have a problem with that. And I'll just find other speakers for those. And they wouldn't do that,
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the issue that I had with these people. So I don't know if other people have had similar types of things. Eventually, there were events, and so he found someone to talk about Excel, and they actually paid this person out of their own pocket, and they were very upset with the speaker, So, so then Brian ended up doing the next 2 talks himself, and
Right.
he was very good, especially we have his PowerPoint
Mhm.
presentation recorded on YouTube, and I thought what he did for us was really, really good.
Right.
So that's the other sticking point. He actually was a very good speaker.
Yeah, it just took a while to get him to commit, because obviously, yeah, you don't want to spend your whole time chasing someone down. But what I think what you described me around this block strategy, I think is really interesting to me. And the only tweak I might recommend around that is to say when you're bringing in a co-producer or you have more than one co-producer, I'd say a block can sometimes be a dangerous thing, because if someone flakes out over several events, well, now you have a big gap in your group. So I like to sort of have people alternate and tag team, so you never have the same producer producing more than one event in a row. Because if their life gets busy, which happens, of course, to all of us, suddenly you have like a 2-month gap in your schedule, versus if people alternate in your schedule, then suddenly it becomes tough to a mute here. Suddenly, yeah, it reduces your gap. Sorry, I'm just trying to, yeah, we've got some noise in the background. I'm just trying to identify where that sound's coming from.
Email.
There, I think I found it. Okay, great. Found our source. Emmanuel, I've just put you on mute. It seems like there's some background sound going on there. So yeah, so that's I think some of the tips I might make around how you can structure out the team. Because I think what I've learned is you'll want to build out a bit of a team. And I think the most sustainable model I've found is to be really clear about having one lead producer for each event. It used to be like, oh, we'll get together and we'll plan all the events sort of together. And what I found is, well, then we didn't know who was really in charge, and the event just kind of stalled out. Whereas having one lead event producer for each month to say like, okay, well, I'm going to do the October event, and then it's like and the next person says that I will do the November event, means it's very clear who's in charge of it. And also it's now very clear if something doesn't happen, who we get to gently blame. And so if someone is flaky in November, well, we said like, okay, cancel the event, reschedule them for later, but at least we still have the event for the following month planned because we had a separate organizer happening. So hopefully those are some interesting opportunities for you. But I think for a lot of you, it sounds like you're at the beginning phase, where what you really need to do as a focus right now, of course, is to start building up the team. And as I talked about, I think what I would recommend around that is to go and create either a Google group where you can add anyone who's interested, or if you're more into Slack, several of the groups have created like a basically city channel within the general NetSquared Slack, and you can create sort of a private, like single-use license where you can invite anyone in to just your city channel as your co-organizers. So that could be the other tool you could use for managing the team. Because yeah, I think the first step is get a whole bunch of leads, like find out who could potentially has some interest in being part of your team. And don't do a lot of vetting, just throw all of them into a mailing list. And then from there, give them opportunities to engage by sending out these survey opportunities or regular asks for someone to come in and play event producer roles.
Just a quick question. So
Of course.
through Meetup itself, there really aren't tools to do some of this through the Meetup platform itself?
Meetup has got a little bit of tools around that. So I'll actually walk you through. I'll turn on the screen share and show you what Meetup has got, but it doesn't have a more fully featured event role management thing. You can sort of assign someone a title, but it's sort of a permanent title. It's not sort of an event specific title. So I'm going to bring up the NetSquared Vancouver meetup, and I'll sort of walk you through what you can do there. And so I think the most best tip around this is obviously when you go into your members, you'll see that within your group, you've got a leadership tab up here. And so this shows all the people who are sort of full co-organizers. And for me, these are all the people who are producing full events. But you'll see there's a couple of the people here like Darren, and he's an assistant organizer. And that is a smaller role where he's basically not part of the regular team, but he's more the event host. Because when you go and create an event, and I'll actually just drop you into my next event, there's actually a section where you can add any of the meetup members to be like an assistant organizer just of that event. And that's really powerful because it means you can make an event producer, give them the ability that they can like edit the meetup and message the members just for that one event, but they can't manage your overall meetup. So if you have someone who's going to come in and just produce 2 events and you don't want to give them full meetup editing powers, then you would just bring them in here and you would just add them just as a host to that event. So you'll see it auto-suggest your co-organizers, but actually you can put any member in here, and then they would have a much more limited ability just to edit the one event that they are a host of. So that's one way you can bring in some of your volunteers specifically for this event and feature them as co-hosts on the page to sort of recognize their contributions. But it doesn't really have anything else that's going to be more useful for you as you actually like manage the event. The one thing you could do is, so if you go into the members, so I don't know if you can do that anymore, they may have changed that. Yeah, so you can't really do that anymore. So totally ignore me there. So yeah, so that's what you can do with Meetup, but I think it's maybe not totally solving the challenge. Like what are you ideally looking for?
Well, some of it, I was just wondering because, I just think nonprofits and, organizations overall, just after a while, it also becomes managing all these different applications. Do you know what I mean? So in some ways, it would just be nice to be able to have one application and be able to do, right, like in an ideal world. So that's some of why I was asking, because I'm sure you're a much more knowledgeable Meetup user than I am. So I was just curious.
Yeah, no, always good to ask me first with any question with Meetup because, I'm the co-organizer with all of you of over 120 meetups. So you're right. I know the platform pretty well. And I agree. It would be nice to have a tool that allowed us to do deeper management of our local volunteer teams. But unfortunately, that's not in there. But if you do want to lean on tools we already are using, you can certainly use the Slack and bring in your co-organizers there, and we can create a Chicago-specific channel for you.
I think one exists already. It
Oh,
was set up like when Nathan and
right.
Greg were doing it. So I didn't know about it for a
Yeah, I
while.
don't think it ever got extensive use, but if
I
you
think
want to
they're like
start bringing in other
coordinating.
volunteers.
Yeah. Okay. Because some of it too is that so there are some, how to say this nicely, I think there are some generational issues with Slack.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there are people that aren't accustomed to Slack. And so that's some of too with my co-organizers, I'm just not sure that Slack is going to be the best tool to work with them.
I totally hear that. I know within my own team here in Vancouver, it's certainly not the thing that everyone uses. My core 5 organizers are all deep into Slack mode at this point. But all the people signing up to, like register, like staff the registration table, be the photographer, those are the people actually in the Google group. Because they're less engaged, they don't actually care about the back and forth planning. What they really care about is just like, tell me about my volunteer opportunity. a week before the event. And so that's really how it would probably work out for your group as well.
Okay.
Yeah, because, you know, a good old Google group or something like that, you know, this is what we've been using here in Vancouver for all these years. And it's worked out well for us in that it is cheap and it's easy to manage because I just forwarded an email to everyone and it takes care of itself. So they never have to worry about it in any other way. But yes, it is yet another platform for you to manage. Hopefully you already have a Google account, so at least you don't need to fret about that part.
Okay. Good to know.
But this is the feedback I will bring back to Meetup for sure, because I've been certainly talking about the need for us to have stronger management tools for us as organizers.
Okay.
Any other questions, you know, that people want to walk through today? You know, if you're feeling a little bit shy, you can drop your question into the chat window. And if I've missed someone's question, if someone else just wants to point it out to me, that would be super helpful. Well, great. I don't need to keep you here all day. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll be doing this again in, you know, about 2 weeks. This time we're actually going to be focusing a little bit on how we can do live streaming and video recording of our events. And we're actually going to have a guest presenter for that one, aren't we?
I guess so.
Yeah, so Linda, why don't you give people a really quick tip on what you're going to be sharing, like a preview.
Okay, well, since for the most part I am a one-person show, the way I've been recording my events is by using YouTube. And YouTube has changed its tools. So it supposedly enhanced them for 2019. My event for January was canceled because of the speaker getting sick. So I haven't tried it yet with these new tools to tell you, you know, whether or not it's better or not. But some of the reasons that I've chosen YouTube are, for the most part, you know, it is my show when I am in charge of these events. And so what I do is just bring my laptop with me, and, you know, just, you know, set up the live stream link in advance. And then I just set up my laptop to try to capture as much of the room as I possibly can and, you know, turn it on. And at least that way there's a recording of the event, because I do have one woman who really, when she can come out in person, loves to be here, but she was saying that her board meets on Wednesday nights, so she actually does watch the live stream and finds it helpful.
Excellent. And I like that as an approach because it isn't complicated. There's not, you know, there's no external cameras and microphones. It is something that's very doable. Someone can just set up a phone or a laptop, turn it on, walk away. And because I think, you know, what I'll be talking about in the video thing is to say, we're often not producing slick, beautiful videos in these events, but that's not always necessary.
Mine are not.
Because, you know,
Definitely not.
because I think for our attendees, often for people, you know, who were there, they were like, what did that presenter say 3/4 of the way through the talk? And I'm not taking full notes of every event because I'm busy. And so if you've got a video stream where even if it's not beautiful, you say like, oh, let me scroll to about 3/4 of the way through the video and there's my live notes done. And so you can really be providing this very valuable service to your members without having to go and, like, you know, write a full blog post or, you know, bring in a video production team.
And with YouTube, since it's out there on the web for free, people can actually view the videos without having a YouTube account. But most people do have a Gmail account, as you were saying. And so oftentimes, you know, people just can access those videos pretty easily.
Fabulous. Well, then with that, and a taste of what's to come. We'll see you all in about 2 weeks. Otherwise, thank you so much, and we'll be back, and I'll take this recording and drop it into YouTube, the magical video machine, later today. All right, see y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you.